Hi, today is February the 10th, getting close to Valentine's Day, and we're still kind of talking about the missions so we can get the vocabulary in there and the Spanish influence in Texas and how the Spanish and the Indians got along or didn't get along, who lived in the missions, what were the presidios for. And this one is called The Spaniards and the Indians. A mission brought together two distinct groups of people. The missionaries came from Spain via training schools in Mexico and were Franciscans, an order of priests who had taken a vow of poverty in order to devote themselves to learning brotherhood with all living creatures and spreading the word of God. In Texas, the Franciscans mainly encountered bands of hunter-gatherers called Coahuiltecans or Coahuiltecans. These bands ranged through what is now the Mexican state of Coahuila into South Texas. They moved from one traditional campsite to another, following the seasons and herds of migrating animals. Since the environment in which they lived was often difficult, mainly because of lack of rainfall, the Coahuiltecans lived precariously because they rarely had a sure food supply. Though they sometimes warred against one another, all faced threats from more formidable adversaries such as the Apache and later the Comanche. These tribes had become mobile raiders by taking advantage of the herds of wild horses that had developed from runaways from the Spanish settlers. So the Coahuiltecans, if you will remember, were nomads, and so were the Comanche. The Coahuiltecans were tattooed and wore breechcloth or hide skirt, fiber sandals, and in bad weather a cloak of animal hide. Animal teeth, bones, feathers, stones, and seeds were worn as jewelry and sometimes woven into their intrinsically braided hair. Shelter consisted of small temporary huts of brush or grass. Sensible structures given their way of life and the climate of the area over which they ranged. These hunter-gatherers were willing to become part of a missionary system for a number of reasons. The irrigation system promised a more stable supply of food than they normally enjoyed. Diseases brought by Europeans had depleted their numbers, making the Coahuiltecans even more vulnerable to their now mobile enemies. The Presidio, however, offered much greater protection. Now remember, the Coahuiltecans, man, they almost starved to death. They ate dirt, if you will recall, back when we were reading about the Indians. That's how much they did not have a lot of food. So now, finding these missions and a food supply, they thought, man, this might be a good thing. Paragraph 5. Though routines did vary, the mission shared a number of practices. The missionaries, along with lay helpers, and usually no more than 2 soldiers and their families, instructed the natives in the Catholic faith and in the elements of Spanish peasant society. The Indians learned various trades, including carpentry, masonry, blacksmithing, and weaving. They also did a great deal of agriculture work, that is farming. Since mission society lasted more than 100 years, no single description can cover the entire experience. It is possible, though, to depict some of the most important elements. Religion was the most important factor in shaping the day. At dawn, the church bells rang, calling the people to morning prayer, which was followed by religious instruction. At noontime, the bells tolled again and assembled everyone for more prayer, and in the evening there was another service and more instruction. What happened the rest of the day varied from person to person. Many of the men were led to the fields or to the military drills by a missionary soldier, while others remained in the compound to work in one of the shops, weaving, candle making, woodworking, or engaging in other crafts. Women and older girls often made pottery or baskets, though others prepared food or caught fish in the nearby river. Children spent their days in a number of ways, helping the adults, gathering under a tree for Spanish lessons, playing games with each other. At noontime, everyone came together to eat the day's largest meal. which was followed by the rest period known as a siesta. They remained inside for the hottest part of the day, then returned to their duties until early morning. They would have a light meal before the last service of the day, then enjoy some relaxation. Some would spend the evening dancing and singing while others played games. And we read that in another passage that we read last week. The native population reacted to the mission system in a number of ways. Some of them participated fully, mixing their traditions with those of Spain to create a new Hispanized and Christianized culture. The Spanish then called them gente de razón, or rational, reasonable people like the Spaniards themselves. Other Indians moved in and out of missions, choosing to return to more familiar surroundings during a season when the natural environment was rich with food. Some Indians refused to join at all, continuing to live their traditional ways of life, because if you remember in one of the passages that we read last week, they had to give up their traditions and their way of life, their religion and everything when they came into the mission. And some of them wanted to go back and enjoy their way of life. In the 1790s, the missions began to change. At that time, secularization, turning the settlements into civil rather than religious communities, began. The Spanish government withdrew its financial support and ordered mission lands and livestock to be divided among the mission Indians who had been converted to Christianity. Only one of the San Antonio missions, Mission San Antonio de Valero, now known as the Alamo, was fully secularized. That means it stayed a church. The other four, which are now part of the San Antonio Missions National Historic Park, were only partially secularized. Here the populations elected their community officials, but missionaries remained to act as the parish priests. In 1824, after Mexico achieved independence from Spain, the remaining missions were fully secularized and all missionaries left the area. Though the buildings then fell into decline, in the 1930s restoration began. Today, the four missions within the park serve as parish churches, and all 5 San Antonio missions are open to the public. And I have seen them, and they are very cool to look at inside and out. I haven't been to church in one, but that would be an awesome event, even though I'm not Catholic. It's all very amazing how all of this came together and how the towns grew. For example, San Antonio grew, and we're going to be talking about San Antonio and how it grew into a town tomorrow. So answer your questions in your forms. Please try to write in a complete sentence. You really need the practice. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.